Welcome to Coffee and Conversation. My name is Honorine, and today I'm with Aaron Rodriguez who is a doctoral candidate in English. Aaron, welcome to Coffee and Conversation, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
So my first question for you is, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Aaron Rodriguez. I am a third-year PhD student in the English department. I am originally from a little town south of Madison in Wisconsin. And as I've been getting degrees in college, I've slowly been moving south. I got my MFA from Wichita State University, and then now I'm here in Florida, which I love Tallahassee. It's great.
Oh, that's great. It's a big difference from Wisconsin to Florida, especially in terms of weather.
Yeah, exactly. When I got out of my moving van, I was like, I definitely am in the wrong place. But you know, I don't show up to class as sweaty as I used to, which is good. So I think my body and mind have acclimated to the humidity.
That's good. Did you miss the snow over the winter?
Not at all. No, I love winters down here. They're great.
Oh, awesome. So you recently won the NIH Grant. Congratulations. It's a big grant. It's a very competitive grant. So for those of you who don't know what it is, it's the National Endowment for the Humanities. Can you tell us more about this grant and maybe the process of applying for this grant, what this grant is about?
So there's a bunch of different NIH grants out there, and so this one was for digital humanities advancement. And so really any new technology or anything that tried to move along some research was considered in this grant cycle. And to be honest, I had applied for, and when I say I guess I mean me and my professor at Wichita State, who we were now working together. We had applied for multiple grants from the NIH, and they were always just like super stressful experiences where we would be writing down to like the last minute where we could submit it. And then I took a grant writing class here at Florida State, and then everything kind of made sense. And so for this grant, we started planning 5 months before, really figuring out, what do we need to prove? What other research do we need to bring into this in order to make a compelling case? And so what we did was we wrote part of our grant using a graphic novel, so a comics format. So 8 pages of our grant was a comic, and I think that really helped convince people who were kind of questioning what the validity or the importance of our research. When they saw it expressed in comic form, I think they realized that okay, comics are unique and interesting, and they don't have to just be superheroes.
That's fascinating because I study for my own research graphic novels. So your research is about improving accessibility of graphic and visual narratives for blind and low vision readers. And could you tell us more about your research?
4 years ago, I was teaching Intro to Lit course, and I taught a graphic novel, Fun Home. And one of my students had low vision, and she was unable to discuss the formal aspects of the comic that we were trying to discuss. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Neil Cohen's work, or Scott McCloud talking about like panel to panel transitions and kind of like the grammar of the page, mise en page, all of that stuff. She was unable to have those conversations in class, and so what that kind of inspired me to start thinking about how we make comics accessible, graphic narratives accessible. And so then I started reading a lot about translation theory and how we translate written languages from one language to another. And then I started reading about intersemiotic translation, how we translate between sign systems, and then I realized that the whole saying like the picture is worth 1,000 words or whatever, that any kind of equitable translation for blind and low vision readers has to include everything. So I guess it's really difficult, but it's kind of what editors do all the time when they're editing a text for a book, to provide different context for people.
Who in your team was the person drawing the illustration?
So we had a student, I can't remember their name right now. They were my old professor at Wichita State. They were his student. And so they got a art undergraduate research position, and they were paid to develop they would take the text that we wrote, and then send us a draft of, well, actually, I drew it out first, what I thought it was going to look like, and then I scanned and sent the images to them. And I'm a terrible drawer, so every time we got the 8 pages back, I was like super excited about it, and it was really fantastic. And that is now the comic that we use as kind of our, I don't know, promotional material seems weird, but that is kind of our comic that we center.
And so what are you gonna use the grant with? So because you already have the app, or you have the app in kind of like in design, and then you have to make it happen?
Yeah, so we have a prototype of an app. We made it using Unity 2D, which is a game engine. So it allows people to give a program physics and kind of drag and drop responses. If you think about like any kind of Super Mario game where it's 2D and they're just like jumping from one thing to another, we use that engine as the program that we made the prototype with, and that worked really well. And so what we're doing with the grant is then finding a more stable platform, so it can function as a hub for a library of hundreds, thousands of comics. So that's really what we're trying to accomplish with this grant, is how can this be something where there's kind of like a crowdsource of people making comics accessible, uploading it to the platform, and so it's not just up to 2 people to try and make things accessible.
No, that's great. So basically, if you could like explain simply, how do you make like a comic book like that accessible on an app?
Yeah, so I'll grab so this is, I just read this, it's called The Runaway Princess, and I really like this book. So I'll use this as an example. So the idea is that, so it's like this page. The first step of making this accessible is to and I'm going to use translate as meaning to write what is occurring on this entire page. So the first thing is to translate the mise en page, or like the global narrative of what is occurring on this page. So that way, when this comes up on a tablet, the user can press the play button, which is programmed to hear what is occurring on the page. And so with this page, it's 5 characters are going on this adventure through a wheat field, and it's kind of in the middle of the plot, so not the best example. And so that's kind of the first reading mode that we want to provide for the reader. The second reading mode is an exploration of the panels and how they're laid out on the page. So where you have gutters, when you drag your finger over a gutter, the app vibrates. And if you are reading in the correct sequence, the reader receives a short vibration confirming, okay, you have entered into the correct panel sequence. If the reader drags their finger into the incorrect panel sequence, they will still be able to read whatever's in that panel, but they'll feel some sort of vibration that says this is the incorrect sequence. You can still read it, and until they go back to or find the correct sequence, then they'll receive that. I always call it good and bad feedback, but it's not. There's no good or bad way to read a comic. You can read it however you want.
Yeah.
So then they'll receive the feedback confirming that they're reading it in the right sequence. And then the last way of reading the page is each object has pixel coordinates. And so if you tapping on the screen will tell you exactly what you're tapping on. So if you tap here, it would be, small child, distinctly smaller than the rest of the adults walking. This would be some kind of like wheat field, some clay road. And this is where the CVML encoding is really important, because there's just pages of encoded or tagged words that will have this character, and then it'll have his pixel coordinates next to it. And so then you can search every page in the book where this character appears his pixel coordinates, but it tells the app exactly where that person is on that page.
Fascinating.
So that's kind of, in short, the process. And so that's what our prototype is able to do that right now. We're just having a small disconnect between uploading a vast library of materials. And I should also say, I don't really know how to do programming in any real way. I've been taking classes at TCC to kind of get a larger understanding and maybe a greater appreciation. But I'm not a whiz or anything like that. I'm very bad at teaching myself how to do things, and so yeah, we have programmers who are more skilled.
Okay. And so is that your research, or is just a portion of your research? Because I suppose that you have to write a dissertation at the end of your PhD. So are you using that project, or is it like you have to write your dissertation and on top of this you have to do that?
I guess unfortunately I have to write a different dissertation. I say unfortunately because it'd be nice to just do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But I am my dissertation is not too far off. It deals with how text and image has operated in books since the hand press period. So looking at woodcuts, intaglio prints, and just how the different expectations of readers have changed, but also publishers and editors. How do they decide what? So for example, in Shakespeare, do they choose a scene that shows two actors, or do they show kind of more of a realistic image that is juxtaposed with the text? And so that's what I'm researching for that's my research for my dissertation. But they're really, they're the same thing in the end. Like I'm still reading the same materials. I'm just I'm in the 1500s, and the other one I'm in contemporary land.
It's two very different periods of time. Are you planning on writing a dissertation in a graphic narrative format?
I honestly wish I could draw, but I can't. So no, I think I'm gonna do more traditional, just because even thinking about the dissertation just gives me so much anxiety that I'll just I won't try to change it too much.
Yeah. And so in your spare time, if you have any, what do you like to do?
Spare time, yes. I watch a lot of anime. I take my dog for a walk. I bike around Tallahassee. I just biked for the first time down to
San
There's a
Thomas, San Mark's, the
St.
lighthouse.
Mark. Yeah. I just biked down there on Sunday. So I'm still, my legs are still recovering a little bit, but that was fun. I didn't realize how close the coastal area was really. But yeah, I would recommend everybody do that bike trip sometime.
That's awesome. So you went back and forth, or you went one way and then you got picked up?
No, back and forth. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I didn't, in my mind, I was like, I think theoretically this is possible, that I have enough strength to do it. But then, so I also ate a super greasy meal when I got there. So I think that gave my body enough energy to get back.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was a lot of fun, and I plan to do that again. But other than that, it's been weird having 2 years of grad school kind of eaten up by COVID, because I was only here for a semester and a month, I guess, before everything went, quarantine and shut down.
So my last question for you is, how do you see yourself in 5 years from today? What are your goals?
Goals in 5 years. I would love to have publish my dissertation. I would love to have this app figured out, and on a platform where instructors and blind and low vision readers can access a bunch of stuff that before this they've really been excluded from. I'd also love to have a job at some university, but I also recognize that, for the last 7 years, people have been saying like jobs are tough to get, jobs are tough to get.
Yeah.
So I have a mindset where if I get a job offer, great. If not, I'm going to be fine working in somewhere else that's not a tenure track job in academia. But obviously that's the goal. That's what I'm working towards right now. So I'd love that. But yeah, I think 5 years seems so long from now.
Yeah. So close at the same time.
That is also true. But before that is my dissertation, and then going on the job market, and then I could live in a completely different place.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed our conversation. It was awesome to talk about graphic narratives and hear about your project. It's a fascinating project that I feel we're gonna hear a lot about in years, and yeah, it's awesome what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.